Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Ask Ed. We are on week 3. We are so glad to have you with us. My name is Heather, and this, of course, joining me right here is...
Me llamo Eduardo.
We have Ed with us. So tonight, this is the third week we are doing Ask Ed, and this is an opportunity for you guys to reach out to us via the comment section or on social media, and whatever questions you may have, whether they're, last week we got a question about Ed's favorite ice cream, down to how to handle the very difficult seasons in life that people are in. So whatever the gamut of question is that you are on, send it our way. If you're joining us on our online format on our website, the comment section is right there to the right, as well as Facebook and even YouTube. You can submit some comments that way. So get those comments. We have a team of people looking at them, and they will get them here to us. No question off the table.
None.
Ed is very much looking forward to your in-depth.
and a happy Cinco de Mayo to you.
Yes.
And to all of you guys. And I think we have somebody out there waiting on a Rubio's order.
Yeah, we had a Rubio's order. It was supposed to get here an hour ago, but apparently lots of other people felt that.
I think it's Cinco de Mayo. It's Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday, yes. And we were going to have
a Coronas. virus. Yeah. So
no, we weren't going to have Corona. No.
Okay. Not in the worship center.
Let's start off with some rapid fire questions, all right? So
all right.
Either or questions. So one word, don't explain it. Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles. Everybody says waffles.
No, pancakes.
Oh, you're so wrong.
Yeah. Travel. Do you want to do adventure activities or just relax?
Adventure.
Music or TV?
Ooh, that depends. TV.
Right, TV all day, every day.
Not all day. It just depends.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Night owl.
And lastly, do you take your coffee hot or iced?
Hot.
No iced?
Well, I like both. You said I could only say one thing.
But you're going with
I'm just trying to be a rule follower.
I appreciate it.
Cinco de Mayo.
It's a first time for everything. All right, next round. These are one-word answers. So say the first word that comes to mind. No explanations.
Right. Again, I feel like I should be on a couch.
You should.
For this, like a Freudian word analysis.
Oh, we're judging.
Word association.
We are judging.
All right.
Your go-to taco order?
2 pollo asado tacos and 2 side orders of carne asada.
Didn't even have to think.
No.
Go-to coffee order?
At Starbucks, it's a flat white, 2/3 decaf, 1/3 regular.
Still got to get a little of that caffeine in there.
A little bit, yeah.
If you could pick a superpower, what superpower would you choose?
I'd like that stretchy guy thing. I'd really like that. Because I sometimes, can't reach things, on my back and stuff. So, yeah, I think I'd do the stretchy thing.
So out of all the flying or superhuman strength?
Hey, it's flying. I could, stretchy thing.
Ed wants stretchy arms.
That stretchy thing would be awesome,
Okay, if you could only go to one band's concerts for the rest of your life, what band would that be?
Is it a current band or just like a band from the past?
Any band. If you could only go to that one band's concert.
So any band ever that's ever existed?
Ever. If you had that's the only one you were ever going to see live, ever again, for the rest of your life.
Smart money would say the Beatles, but back in those days, the Beatles, the whole technology wasn't that great. So I'd love to see Jimi Hendrix live.
Oh.
Yeah, if I could just go back in time, I'd see Jimmy.
What kind of person were you in high school? Maybe stereotypical,
Awesome.
stereotypical person. Were you a geek, jock, nerd, extrovert, shy? What was your go-to high school?
I hated virtually every minute of high school, so I was the non-participative, kind of not great student. Kicked out a few times kind of person.
Seriously?
Yeah, I was. Now, I became a Christ follower in high school, and so stuff changed. Showing up sober every day changes your high school experience quite a bit. So, for example. So, yeah, I loved college. I loved it. hated high school. So.
We were going down a rocky path before we found Jesus in high school, is what you're telling us.
Yeah, I didn't see it as rocky. I just saw it as life. But yeah, it was bad. It was not good. I wasn't a happy person.
Still made it to college, though.
Yeah, well, nowadays I wouldn't have. But back then, a C+ student got into Long Beach State. So.
Got you there. Final round. These are short answer questions. So quick, brief, short answers. What is one verse you would want everyone to know?
Ooh.
And why?
Ooh. You know, the verse that just popped into my head when you said that is Psalm 36:8. It says, they drink their fill of the abundance of your house, and you give them to drink of the rivers of your delights. I'm not sure why that popped into my head, but I think it's like...
Say it again for us.
It's Psalm 36:8. It says, they drink their fill of the abundance of your house, and you give them to drink. God, this is a prayer. And you give them to drink of the rivers of your delights. I think that the word picture there is so the essence of what this thing with Jesus is really all about. Is it's not about a system of ethics or things you should do or a way. It's about delight. It's about joy. It's about happiness. It's about situating yourself to drink of the rivers of his delights. What an interesting phrase, you know, that they said that's this deal is we drink our fill of the abundance of your house. Like God's presence, there's abundance, and we just drink till we're satiated. And then there's rivers, like just flowing and flowing rivers of his delights. And so I just think the boldness of the psalmist and his word picture of, like, you know, C.S. Lewis talked about this, the boldness of the promises of God to delight and happiness. Like really the religion that's passed itself off as Christianity is kind of embarrassed by verses like that. You know what I mean? That like, well, you know, we really don't want to talk too much about delight and happiness. And the Bible's like, no. We're talking about that.
God is all about delight in him. So is there a verse, topic, or story that you may have misinterpreted it at first? So when either when you were beginning out or later on?
All of them.
Is there one that you misinterpreted and make us feel better for all of us that feel like, maybe I got that wrong? Or
Well, I think I come by misinterpretation naturally. Like I mentioned Jimi Hendrix. I was convinced as a junior higher that Jimmy was saying in the song Purple Haze, excuse me while I kiss this guy, and it's not that. It's while I kiss the sky, and so I thought, well, you know, it was the 70s,
That's
so you know, a lot of stuff. But I would say most people's misinterpretation of the Bible is because of frameworks that they're given early on that they don't even know they're given. And they bring that into the Bible, and then they misinterpret it.
Like the preset stuff we come to the Bible with.
Preset stuff. So I remember reading the Sermon on the Mount and other passages of Jesus as what was given to me is that Jesus was giving another version of Torah. This is the new rules. So not only is it bad, for example, to murder someone or to commit adultery, but if you even think about it, well, you know, and so it was like, I thought Jesus was like saying, oh, you think the bar's down here? Well, it's really up here.
Hardcore.
And that is so not the point. You know, that is so not the point. So I think a lot of those...
well, give us the point. You can't say that and then...
Well, yeah. See, the thing is, what Jesus tells us what the point is. He says, unless your righteousness goes way past that of the scribes and Pharisees, well, that's not what the kingdom of God is all about. You're not in the kingdom of God. And so he says, listen, this isn't a righteousness of compliance. This is a righteousness of transformation. This is a righteousness that it's not like you're trying really hard not to do a wrong thing. Like, ooh, I so want to kill that guy, but I'm going to hold it in. Or and you know, like, I so want to sleep with this person, but I'm not going to do this because it's wrong, you know. Yeah. Jesus says this is a whole nother world from that.
Yeah.
This is a world where not only do I refrain from killing my enemies, I let God deal with the contempt in my heart. The world is all about me, and you're in my way, you jerk, or I'm willing to use somebody just, as an object to just make me feel better about myself. Or, I'm willing to, just ditch my marriage because somebody better is along. That's Jesus is talking about divorce. He's saying the kingdom of God is a whole nother thing. It's a different kind, not just a more stringent or a more lenient version. I think the error these days, I sound like an old guy. Oh, I am an old guy. But I think our current error in our culture and even in our church culture is that we think what Jesus was saying was more like being more lenient. Like the Pharisees and scribes and church was really strict.
Rigid.
And Jesus is lenient and cool and whatever. And no, Jesus isn't either of those. He's saying this is altogether different. And in fact, this weekend in the message, we'll kind of get into that a little bit. So
yeah, I think too, like if you're a good way to think, if you're starting with what am I allowed to do, what am I not allowed to do, you're already starting at the wrong place.
Yeah, if you ask the wrong question, you're almost surely going to come up with the wrong answer.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So let's hear some of your wrong questions.
No judgment.
No.
All right, so let's talk about the message. So you, last weekend, you were speaking about vision and passion and how Jesus is wanting to reignite in us calling and vision and passion, fire in our life, and that Jesus is the one that does that. He's the one that pulls that out in us, and he's the one that even reignite those dreams that we have. So to get personal for you, I know you love these questions. Can you talk about a time when you lost a dream or maybe you lost a passion and Jesus was the only thing to reignite it? And
yeah. I would say for me, there were several times and still are occasional times when I get really discouraged and instead of lifting my eyes, like Jesus said, I tend to lower my gaze and just think, well, I guess this is just never going to happen, And a lot of it for me lives around the vision I have for what we here at Journey, what God's going to do with us and through us and in us and to the world. I really think that this community, Journey Community Church, is going to be a part of reaching the world for Christ. I think thousands and thousands of people are going to be connected with God through Jesus and are going to, their eternal destiny is going to be altered through us, through this community that is us. But when lots of stuff goes wrong, or when you sometimes feel like, man, we're going the wrong direction. Like we're shrinking instead of growing. We're behind in our budget instead of ahead of our budget. We've got people chirping at each other and like seems like there's division creeping up. I mean, things that just are normal church stuff. It's easy for me to feel like, yeah, that's because I suck. This is happening because I suck. I'm at least organizational chart wise, I'm somewhere near the top of this thing. So it's my problem, right? So, but I think too, on a more profound level or a more emotional level, I'm just like the rest of you guys. When we really pray hard for example, for a healing, and we're asking God to do like a great healing, and we're asking God to flex his muscles and show his glory and display his power, and then somebody that really shouldn't die dies anyways. That's really hard for me. And it's easy to let, and in the past 6 months, 7, 8 months more like it, we've seemed to have had a series of those in our community. Yeah. And pain and disappointment and unanswered prayers, they can be things that, just like I talked about this weekend, life is what beats the vision out of you. Like these guys in the story, these guys are leaving their friends, their inner circle. These three women come back and tell you, Jesus isn't in the tomb. You have heard Jesus say, now whether they remembered it or not, they had heard him say explicitly, I'm going to be crucified, I'm going to be buried, and I'm going to rise again. Now they didn't understand what that meant. They had no category for it. But you would think they would say, well, let's at least stick around and figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
But life and trauma and pain had beaten the vision out of them. And so what Jesus did was restore that. And that's what he does for me, and that's what he does for us, is he walks with us and breaks the bread, and then our hearts start burning again. And all of a sudden we remember, well, this is what it's like to be around Jesus. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I've got to have this. Mm-hmm. I can't live my life with a unburning heart, as it were. So,
talk for me a second, a little bit on that line. What's the difference for those of us who have a hard time separating a crushed vision and a crushed dream with crushed vision of who Jesus is? So what's like the passion for Jesus has gotten crushed, or my passion for God himself has started to wane. I think a little bit of like David when he's going to get the Ark of the Covenant, and his buddy sticks his hands out and is immediately killed. And he's like, I got to send that Ark away. I can't be around it. I can't be around the presence of God because I'm so devastated with God almost.
Yeah.
Like, how do we disconnect or separate that?
Yeah. And in some ways, that is the art of life. That's the art of if I'm going to do life with God or not. There's a pattern in the Bible. If you just think about it, like once you get familiar with the scriptures and the stories of the scriptures, there's an unmistakable pattern. I would love to say I'm the guy that noticed this and has shared it with everybody, but I heard it from somebody else when I was in college and fairly new as a Christ follower. But it's once you see it, you just like, oh, it's everywhere. And the pattern is, you could call it the death of the vision pattern. Like almost every time in the scripture that somebody gets a vision, there's a initial like promise of the vision, and then a waiting for the fulfillment of the promise, a death of the vision, and then a resurrection of the vision. Which I wonder why they came up with that pattern. You know, like we were hoping that he was the one who would deliver Israel, death of the vision, and then a resurrection of the vision. Think about Abraham. You know, from you is this great nation going to come, and your seed is going to bless the entire earth. That's the vision. Then he goes, his wife can't bear, they can't have a child. She passes menopause. So now biologically, there's no hope. Then they wait even another decade, and then he's almost 100 years old. And so there's the vision, death of the vision. Same with Isaac, same with David. There's a vision where David, you're going to be the new king of Israel. Mm-hmm. Then you spend the next decade running for your life, anything but a king, and then the vision, the resurrection of the vision. Mm-hmm. And then we want the ark, the presence of God in Jerusalem, death of the vision, resurrection of the vision. I mean, so if we're followers of Jesus and we see a pattern in the life of Jesus, we should be alert to that pattern in our own life. And I think a lot of us have had numerous cycles like that in our life. Vision, the vision died, and then the vision is resurrected. You would think that after a couple of those, we would know, I'm going to be cool when this vision dies. But we never are. We never are. And so the point is, when we're in a moment where we feel lost and like our vision has died, is even if we have to let go of the vision, that we don't let go of God. Because God is the vision. God is the calling. Like we say, I quote Os Guinness quite a bit, that, we are called by God and to God and for God. And anything that we're going to do or hope to have is rooted in that calling. Like any calling other than that is like a sub-calling of that. It's a derivation of that. So like say our calling to be what God's calling us to be, a journey, well, that's a sub-calling of the fact that we are called by God and we are called to God, and then we are called to do something for God. So
here is a good question that came in. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. And we have one that came in that says, what made you go to the church for the first time? So you had mentioned that you weren't a Christ follower in high school. So give us that. What actually made you go to church? I don't think I know
what
this.
made me go is the guy that introduced me to Jesus was at my house waiting for me and not leaving until I came out to the car and went with him. So
you were literally made to go.
I wasn't made because he wasn't related to me and he had no authority over me, but it was kind of like he was persistent. And I asked Jesus into my life on a Tuesday night, and the next 5 days, man, my head was spinning. And somewhere as the weekend got closer, I felt something in me really resistant to going to church. And I kind of think that if I didn't go with him to church that weekend, I don't think I would have stuck as a Christ follower. I just have this feeling that that's the case. And I went there and my brother went with me. He was my younger brother, but he had been to church several times with various friends. I'd never been in a church in my life. So I kept asking my little brother, so I'm 16, 17, and he's like a freshman in high school. And so I'm asking him questions on what's going on in church. He doesn't really know, but he was very fine with making stuff up and saying it authoritatively. So we walked in and there was a guy handing us programs, right? We'd call him a greeter or an usher. And I said, who's that guy? And he goes, they're the bouncers. It's like, I knew what a bouncer was. So I'm like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? And they looked very serious as they're handing this out. I'm like, all right. And so that's what made me go to church. And it was a very traditional church. And so I didn't get anything. I was not dressed properly like them. And but when the pastor spoke, it was like he probably spoke for, I don't know 35, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. That went by like that. I was enraptured. And it was like the first time I'd ever heard anybody take and explain the Bible and preach a message.
Yeah.
And it was like magic.
Yeah.
It was magic. So, I mean, it was crazy. There's more. The guy who led me to Christ and then kept bringing me, he's a real model. Like, he was really persistent and super patient. And, I think he had some idea of what he was dealing with. So,
I'm going to switch gears on you a little bit
Sure.
and ask you one more question in this arena because it's come up twice. I'm not sure we're going to get through a week without a COVID-19 question.
Understandably.
So here we go. This one is, I've seen it come up a little bit, so I'm going to, do you think what is happening in the world right now is part of the end times? And even when you answer that, speak a little bit into why that idea creeps up in people. Why is that feeling? I mean, we do have murder hornets coming out now all of a sudden.
Right. So don't leave your house. These are some bad mamma jammas, these hornets. They got stingers like that long.
We thought it was locusts and it's hornets.
Locusts, yeah. I can see why somebody would wonder if this is the end times because this feels apocalyptic to us. Whenever you're going through something scary, tragic, devastating, especially when we've never been through it before, you can think, oh yeah, this is the end times. Also, for some of us, those of us that say you've been around church a long, long time, say since my age, you were taught about the end times in a way that there's some things that are eerily familiar with this. One of the things that should disturb, I think, regardless, I know there's different views on this, and sadly, instead of coming together, it seems like we're splitting into different, political views and stuff. And like I said before at Journey, we don't do politics here. And we're gonna have to just be okay with some of us thinking this and some of us thinking this. But it should, I think, one of the things that makes you or anybody ask this question is that it seems like, one of the disturbing things for everybody is that our individual liberties seem to be compromised in this. And some people might say, yeah, understandably. And other people might go, no, there's no. And I mean, okay, we're not getting into that. I'm just saying I get why this could engender meta fear, not just the fear of COVID-19, but the fear of the stuff. And we're looking at pretty serious economic devastation. I heard this week that 25% of San Diegans are unemployed. I mean, I hope that's not the case. But if it's even close, that is a devastating number. So here's the thing. Everybody that has ever tried to attach their current circumstances to the end times, so far, since it's not the end times, so far they've been wrong every time. So definitely don't stick yourself out there, and definitely don't put the reputation of Jesus on the line and say, oh yeah, this is the end times. If you want to say, man, there's some really disturbing and scary things happening, guess what? Yeah, okay. But let's not get kind of weird on the, there's a verse in Revelation that talks about this. Well, that's a whole nother subject, but suffice it to say that here's what this for sure is. This is an invitation by God for the world. Listen, this is important. For the world to repent. And guess what? That starts with the people of God repenting. That starts with me repenting. I'm personally, this is now you're going to get Ed's personal conviction and personal opinion. Just happens to be right. I think God is calling us in America to turn and repent. Repent means to turn away from the casualness with which we have treated God and the things of God and the blessings of God. I mean, let's think about this. I think if we could meet here this weekend, I don't think too many of us would be going, well, I feel like maybe I'm going to sleep in. Maybe I'll catch it next week. Finally, we'd go, dude, I'm there. I think we've been rebuked about how, casually we've taken the worship of God and the being together and being able to sit in the same room with people that are all seeking Jesus together. So I know that. I know that God is calling us to turn back to him and to invite our entire nation to turn back to him.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there about this invitation. And if we can focus on that invitation, I think that helps a lot too, this invitation to repent, or even just an invitation to draw near, or that to me feels really good. Well,
and the rapture's coming in 3 weeks.
Just so we're clear, we all are on the right side.
3 weeks.
I'll be gone. I'll be out of here. Well, joining us now, we have Chris Rader, who is our Care Ministries pastor. All of our hurts, hang-ups, and habits. He is the go-to guy for that. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about what he's seeing and really, I don't want to say the feelings guy, but I feel like you're really good with the feelings. So when you have the feelings about stuff, Chris is that guy. So our first question we're going to reach out to you about is we see a lot on social media about how we're all in this together. And even Facebook now has that thing on the top when you check in that says, we're all in this together. To be honest, sometimes it feels like the situation you're in, this can look very, very, very different. So what has been your experience? Because I think mine is different from others. And so while you want to get all warm and fuzzy that we're in this together, is that really?
Well, I've just been labeled the feelings guy, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. Yeah. And I've only got 3 weeks, so it really doesn't matter, Heather. But one thing I think, yes, we're all in the same thing, but we're definitely not in the same boat. And if you watched the NFL draft with Jerry Jones, we're definitely not in the same boat. He's going through this a whole lot differently than the rest of us. And we're all in this in a different level, and it's impacting everybody very differently. One or two things I noticed, though, that seem to be impacting everybody, it seems, is what they've been calling quarantine fatigue. I think that's just a new name for depression, something we've all experienced one way or another. And as I've run into people and I'm doing counseling and Zoom counseling and all that kind of stuff, I've run into people who are all over the spectrum. I've never had depression before, but I'm feeling just this weight and that's depression. And the other end of the spectrum of people who have dealt with depression their entire life, and now it's borderline becoming unmanageable. And I think just across the board, it seems like this virus thing has just moved each one of us 2 notches on that scale. So the person that goes, I've never had depression in my life. I just walk into the other room and I forgot what I went in there for. I'm like, well, that's not depression. That's a senior moment, and that's going to happen again. But when you walk into the other room and you just stand there and go, there's an extra heaviness there that I don't know what to do in this other room, and that's depression. So I think there's that. And one other thing that I think is kind of across the board is the virus has seemed to put a spotlight on whatever issue that we might have had before the virus. So if we've had life going on and all of a sudden this virus hits, all of a sudden the intensity of that has just multiplied. We have families grieving, can't do a celebration of life service. What does that look like? Now we're in this forever limbo kind of thing. Or we've decided to have the celebration of life on Zoom. That's awkward.
Yeah.
Having grandchildren give their last goodbyes to grandma via Zoom. Here's the feelings guy coming out. That's just hard. It's moved everything another notch, and it's just intensified everything. So we have folks that are going through situations of domestic violence who have made an agreement with their spouse. Well, if you move out, I won't file some, domestic violence restraining orders or what have you. And well, now I'm quarantined with this person, and I can't. I'm hopeless. I just got divorce papers the day before. Boom. Also, whatever it was that you were going through beforehand, this has kind of just intensified it. So for those of us on the depression spectrum or the anxiety spectrum or whatever, all of a sudden this has just made it a lot more intense.
I want to ask, because I want to ask something a little specific for us that I hope will help us break out a little bit. So in the light of the situation, Ed mentioned that we're, potentially 25% job loss. You're talking about hurts and domestic violence situations could be escalated. There's been talks of, last week we talked about how we have habits that we revert back into, and some of that could be, addiction, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, food addiction, all these things. And then there's almost this new shift for a lot of people, like a new negative reality. And I'm just going to be real for a second and get the feelings too. Like for me with my husband, and his business is sports, and we're just looking at the numbers and it's not looking good. And, it's just, we're feeling like we're losing a dream, his dream. And trying to navigate that has been, I could not get out of bed on Friday. Like I had my bosses, Ed, people emailing me wanting things, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't function. And I just felt like, what is wrong with me? I'm better than this. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm up here on stage and I share things and I'm pastoral or what. Like, I feel like this should not be happening to me, but it's happening to me. So is that shame? Is that's clouding it? Because then that makes me just want to lock down even more. And so how do we break free of that? How do we find Jesus in that?
Just real quick. The difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is I've done something bad and I might be able to fix that. I can ask you for forgiveness. I can give you back what I stole. I can maybe kind of make that right. Shame isn't that I've done something bad. Shame says I am bad. And I'm just a bad person. And that's not going to change. And so now I throw a virus on this, and it's spiraling out of control. And there's this expectation, like you were saying, of, well, I'm in ministry. I'm a pastor. I'm the feelings guy. So there's this expectation, well, you're close to God. You shouldn't have these problems. Well, if you were close to God, then you wouldn't have these problems. So, well, I have these problems, so now I start doubting myself. Well, maybe I'm not as close to God as I thought. And Satan just blows on that fire like crazy of, this is a secret between you and me. Shh, don't tell anybody. Don't tell Ed. But you're really not worthy to be a pastor. And Satan just blows on that secret, and I can't tell anybody. So shame wants me to bury it. And the thing to diffuse shame is vulnerability. Vulnerability to God and vulnerability to yet another human being. So I come before God and go, I have no idea why you chose me to be a pastor, because I wouldn't have chosen me. I'm just as broken as the next guy. And sometimes I think in this arena of the feelings thing I think God goes, you're the perfect person for that, because you're not speaking from the ivory tower, so to speak. You're speaking at their level and going, I feel your pain. Jesus says, I know your pain. And so being vulnerable is what diffuses and takes away that card from God's, for what Satan uses against you. It takes that tool away from him. So when I'm vulnerable and I put it out there, Satan goes, oh man, you just took away my thing. So was that my cue to be vulnerable, or?
Now that I've just shared with everybody what I'm going through. So I'm gonna go on that. So you're talking about being vulnerable. What do we do? What are some practical resources? And Ed, I want you to chime in on this. So, Chris, we have church resources here, but give us some things when we're in that space. And because I was talking to one of our coworkers today, and she was like, "It's like dieting. I know what I need to do. I know what I should be doing, but I don't do it. So what can we do? And what is Journey providing and helping us with in that space?"
Well, for the next 3 weeks anyway, we'll be providing some resources. For me, a lot of this it's physical, it's emotional, and it's spiritual. It's not one or the other. So sometimes, you need prayer. I need somebody to come alongside. Will you pray for me? Yes, please. Sometimes it's emotional. You know what? I've got some stuff in my emotional backpack that I've been carrying around for a long time, and it's been manageable, so I don't deal with it. But now with this virus thing, man, it's just put the spotlight on it, and I'm forced to have to deal with it. I need some help. Get a resource, get somebody that has expertise. When my car breaks down, I take it to the mechanic. I don't take it to my best friend and go, what do you think I should do? Because he's just as, not so good with cars as I am.
Right.
So take it to somebody who knows. So it's okay to go to a therapist and go, man, I'm just really wrestling with this. And sometimes it's physical. For me, the biggest impact to me and depression is sugar. So I get depressed, I eat sugar. I eat sugar, I get depressed. And it's a downward cycle of getting off the sugar made the hugest impact. And sometimes it is something that's simple, and other times that's why we have a recovery program. You need to go kind of through, we call it your inventory, and go back through some emotional things that are hard.
Yeah. Ed, can you speak into that a little bit? Are you...
I think that isolation has its own inertia. We get isolated, we act out, and it maybe triggers some things, and then we feel worse about ourselves, and then that makes us more stuck in our isolation. And so my word is, do whatever you have to do to break the inertia of isolation. And so get in a group. We have Chris, how many recovery groups do we have going, Zoom groups? We have 2 or 3 a day, right?
We have 2 Zoom recovery groups a day, one in the morning and one in the evening.
Yeah, so and if you're thinking, man, I need to take some steps, well, morning, evening, get in a small group of some kind. You send us an email, send Heather an email, we'll find you a group that, and in some ways, oddly enough, since nobody can physically meet in a group, it's kind of easier to start in a group than maybe it was even before. Like you're just another face on the square of somebody's computer screen as opposed to having to, show up and try a whole new environment. So be careful about the inertia, the stuckness that comes in isolation. We cannot survive isolated. I should say this, we can't thrive isolated. And trust me, as soon as we can, physically be in the same space, we're keeping our eye on everything. We'll be back as soon as we can. But for now, man, don't stay isolated. Break that inertia. Let us help you. I mean, literally, let us 3 on the stage. You can send an email to chris@journeycom.org or heather@journeycom.org. These guys will get you into some kind of community starting this week. Like by the end of this week, you could be connected to a group. And we would love to have everybody watching this and your friends and your family all in a group. Even if you're a high school student, junior high student, Edge 56 student, we can get you in a group.
Yeah.
All the way up to senior adults.
I want to go into a question that came in that I kind of feel that fits perfectly with this because it fits perfectly with the message. The 2 guys that met Jesus on the road that you talked about this weekend, and they certainly were feeling like dreams were dying.
Yeah.
Like vision was dying. The question is, do you think they were longtime disciples of Jesus? And I want that to be answered, and then maybe Chris can chime in too. Does it matter if you're a longtime disciple when it comes to like your dream dying? Does that matter for us? Does that create a...
Yeah, I think as much as anybody was a longtime disciple of Jesus, so the longest time disciple, like the guy with the most seniority, has it the most 3.5 years. So were they there from the beginning? Probably not, but they were definitely in the inner circle. Mm-hmm. They were a part of the initial group of the people that would be the initial leadership of this new movement. So yes, they were. And but in terms of that whole cycle of vision, death of a vision, resurrection, that doesn't matter with your length of time. You don't have to have logged, lots of years of following Jesus. That can be part of your story, like maybe even before you know Jesus, you just didn't have words for it and didn't know why sometimes these visions were resurrecting. And that was God. That was God even before you knew God. That was God. So,
Chris, do you have any thoughts on that as far as what you're seeing with people who've been doing this for a long time versus people who are new?
Not so much that, but just I resonate with the death of a dream, and that's what got me into ministry. My dream was to own my own company, and that went crazy during the .com thing and was going great, and God literally shut it down overnight. And go into ministry like I told you to. Whoa. So that was a very real thing for me. But there's a book called Death of a Dream from, I think his name is Cunningham, that started Youth with a Mission. And that to me just spoke volumes to me of this person that was following God, heard from God, did exactly what God told him to do. And his vision was to build what eventually became the Mercy ships. And his first ship sunk. And he had to go back to the guy that paid $1 million for it and say, yeah, you're $1 million at the bottom of the ocean, sorry. Can you give me another $1 million? Because I really think that was from God. So that death of a dream is real, but I think that's where God steps in and goes, yeah, this isn't about you. This is about what I'm doing. And I can resurrect the dream at any moment. And so I think for us as humans, we have to let go of my part in that. Oh, yeah, God's going to use me to do blah, blah, blah. God's given me a vision. And I think that humble pie that he squeezes out of us to go, no, this is what what I'm going to do through you. And I think the bigger the death of the dream, the bigger the dream that's going to come on the other side.
Well, guys, I think we are pretty much out of time, going a little bit longer. Thank you, Chris, so much for joining us. Thank you, Ed. I'm going to give you guys some quick announcements real quick, just some things you want to know. We had an amazing turnout at our drive-through food drive this weekend.
We did.
Oh, my gosh, it was so much fun.
Good job.
I thank you, everyone who participated in that. I do want to let you know that if you didn't get to make it to the food drive, and
we won't take your food.
We won't take your food anymore,
No.
sorry. No, we actually have an opportunity. You can bring food to our office Tuesday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's available every single week. We have someone there and we bring it inside at the end of the day. So that will get to where it needs to be. And also we do have an ongoing schedule of food when we hand out the food. So if you need that resource, that's available on our website. We are absolutely here to help get you fed, because food scarcity it's not something that we mess around with here, and we don't want anyone to constantly be wondering where their next meal is coming from. So food distributions as well as continued. So if you're in a spot where you can donate, and if you're in the spot where you need it, we are here for you. We are also going to continue. First Step is going to continue through, not First Step, Ask Ed is continuing through next week. We're going to be doing Ask Ed. And then we are going to be switching to a worship night. It's going to be happening on May 26th. That's Tuesday, May 26th. So we are going to do one more week of Ask Ed. And then we're going to take a week off because our people, they just need some time off. And then the following week, we're going to do this big worship night. Now, this is exciting because it's happening May 26th, and it's going to lead us into the final message of our current series. And on the final message, Ed, we're going to be talking about Pentecost.
Yes, we are.
So it's going to be really cool to have this big worship night that's going to lead us into Pentecost. And Ed's not going to let us down. He's going to bring it that weekend.
For a change.
We will hold his feet to the fire to make it happen. And finally, yes, so I do want to talk about First Step. First Step is a program we have here at Journey where anyone who is new to Journey, who has questions about who we are, who wants to meet our pastors, we have this amazing program we do once a month called First Step. We give you a tour. Well, things are a little bit different right now. Obviously, we can't do the tour and we can't really do the face-to-face. So we are going to do a First Step online. So we have lots of people, guys, who have been joining us online throughout our area, have been looking for a church, have found us online, and we want to reach out to them. So we are going to be doing a First Step online. It's a way to engage, figure out who we are. That is going to be happening in June, on June 7th, from 12:30 to 2 p.m. If you are interested in that, you can just shoot me an email as well, or go online and you'll be able to register right on our website, journeycommunitychurch.com. I think
National Day of Prayer.
A National Day of Prayer. Yes, Ed, tell us about that.
So this Thursday is, as every first Thursday of May is, National Day of Prayer. It's been going, it's been a thing that we've done as a nation for years and years and years. And so there will be a multi-church night of prayer, and some of us pastors will be involved in leading it. Some of the pastors of the churches around here that myself and Dave Hoffman from Foothills and Robert Herbert from All Peoples. And I mean, it's just going to be a great night. And some of our worship teams will be there. It's going to be different, obviously, because we're not in a room together. But we are going to be together both, like we're going to film it film it or send it out, or I don't even know what the right terminology is, from the same place, and our worship leaders will kind of take turns leading different parts of it. It's going to be a great night, and we need to pray. So that's this Thursday, like essentially 48 hours from right now, from 7 o'clock. You can go on the Journey website, and there'll be a link that you'll be able to click and join that online. And there'll be hundreds and thousands of people from all different churches all over San Diego. And maybe, there'll be churches doing this all over the country. But maybe there'll be people joining us that are from all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's important, man. If there's ever been a time we needed to pray, now
and
is it.
And to pray collectively.
Pray together. Now
pray
is the
body
time.
Of Christ.
So see you on Thursday.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We will be seeing you next week, same time, same place. Good night, guys.